I was going to ask you, before we get too far down the road with the entire picture of this thing, what happened with Bill O'Brien? Was it the fact that he feels like he might be close to coming back to the NFL as a head coach soon enough? Is it there was some concern about, quote unquote, poaching him from Nick Saban? We have the quotes where Saban says, he's not a big fan of, friends poaching from his staff and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Is that what happened? Is Bill
I
O'Brien
don't
still
think
on
it's
the radar?
over.
Or
Yeah, I don't think it's over. Like I said,
okay,
I think Bill started a lot of this work on Monday.
okay,
But we've gone through this. We saw this with the Josh McDaniels, when he agreed to become the Colts head coach. He never talked to Bill that entire process until all of a sudden he did, and then he's staying. Like, this is what happens with Belichick. He gets through his work with the season. He's just focused on what's in front of him. Review the season, maybe get away for a week, recharge, clarify, sort of clear the mind so that he has a better idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to see the team for 2022. And I think that Bill started his work on 2022 basically on Monday. And I think and he's probably basically going through it. He probably has a list. I don't think the Bill O'Brien thing is done yet. I think that what you heard last week from Nick Saban, and it's been reported all over the place that Nick Saban said, I don't think Bill O'Brien is looking to leave. And I think in that moment, absolutely 100% correct, because no one had really heard from Bill
right.
Belichick. But I do think that there could be some conversations between Saban and Belichick and O'Brien this week. Bill O'Brien would like to come back here and work for the Patriots. Now, I don't believe any of this stuff. I've heard some of the Boston radio talking about, like, or even some of the reports they talk about. Well, maybe it's not best for Bill O'Brien to come back here because he could just be gone in a year. First of all, I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, look at Josh McDaniels. People are probably saying the same thing about Josh McDaniels, and he was here for like 11 years. And who was the last coach to jump from college coordinator to an NFL head coach? I can't even think of anybody. So that's not going to happen. Could it happen? Yeah. Will he get interviews? Yeah, as favors to agents and keep Bill O'Brien's name in circulation. But if Bill O'Brien wants to be an NFL head coach again, which he does, and I don't think he would mind succeeding Bill Belichick here, then you come to the New England Patriots, you prove yourself developing Mac Jones, and that's the surest path, whether it's here or someplace else, to be an NFL head coach. So I do not think the Bill O'Brien thing is done yet. Could we know by the end of the week whether it is? Yes. But again, I think this is a work in progress for Belichick, and I think that that is still a possibility for them. And to me, it's the ideal. That's what I want. That's what Mac Jones should want. That's what Bill Belichick should want. Bill O'Brien back here, being seamless, being head coach of the offense, and keeping things rolling from where Josh McDaniels was.
It's interesting that, Joe Judge decides to stick in New England or come back to New England instead of going to the Raiders and having a special teams coordinator position just ready for him under Josh McDaniels. The fact that he's willing to come back to New England as an offensive assistant when, as you're saying, that there's some fluidity to this and there's really no guarantee of exactly what he'll be doing. I guess you could say there's the pull of Belichick. There's the pull of, maybe coming back, quote
Absolutely.
unquote, home. But it's just fascinating to me, right? Because you could have a solid position figured out for yourself. You could live in Vegas. You could be working under McDaniels, and you'd have the responsibility. You would know what you were doing. But Joe Judge instead decided to stay on the East Coast and stay with, return and be with Belichick and figure out the role. I agree with you. Bill O'Brien, I don't know if he's the greatest offensive coordinator. I do have my issues of certain things that he did in Houston, calling plays and all of that at inopportune times. But as far as seamless transition, and we know what Josh McDaniels had been doing over the past, really ever since he came back, as you've said this on this podcast several times, he was the head coach of the offense. I mean, he was the guy offensively. Belichick mostly stayed out of his way. Obviously he'd have his own thoughts and he'd have the final call on game days, but McDaniels was the head coach of that offense. And And I would be concerned, even with Joe Judge there, to just roll with Caley as the guy. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions about this staff right now, defensively already with Steve Belichick and Mayo, and we'll talk about Mayo in a couple of minutes. But there's already some questions about the staffing on the defensive side. The last thing I want is questions about the offensive side of the staffing. I would much rather have somebody who's experienced, knows the system. Bill O'Brien also has learned some more spread schemes and has done some different things with Alabama that I think he could bring to New England. I would much rather have that than a first-time offensive coordinator, de facto with Joe Judge overseeing him. I'd much rather have Bill O'Brien.